All right. So, what did Robbi Rodriguez or Ed Piskor or God? How many of these are there going to be? Let's just lump them all together. Hey, everybody. This is Perch. As the ongoing saga of bad behavior, questionable behavior, call outs continues, it's hard to, by the way, go into all this stuff because depending on your point of view, you either see this, many of these things as no big deal or really horrifying with weirdly very little in between. I think almost everybody can chalk it up to this stuff really isn't cool behavior, and the consequences that not cool behavior can go pretty far and wide, depending on again your point of view. But the saga continues of lots of little pieces of bad behavior, and rather than doing 18 videos, let's just go through 4 of them right now. So, first off, old Robbie Rodriguez. Now, where do you know that name from? He worked on Spider-Gwen, and he had a notable, kind of 2 notable things in the past. First, he got into a fight with Frank Cho, and Frank Cho drew Spider-Gwen in response to Milo Manera's Spider-Woman's butt. Are you following all this? There's a lot, quite a trail. Anyway, he gets mad at Frank Cho and says, "You're drawing dirty pics of one of my kids," meaning Spider-Gwen, because Frank Cho drew Spider-Gwen like with her butt up in the air, and he says, "You're lucky you're never around me." Kind of like this tough guy threat, which I always look at that stuff and it's a super eye roll because people who say this stuff never actually follow through. He then proceeds a few years later, or maybe 1 year later, I don't know. He doesn't like Ethan Van Sciver, and it's like join the club. Lots of people don't. And again, without getting into whether Ethan Van Sciver is a good guy, bad guy, troll, creep, whatever you want to say, he sends Van Sciver a picture of his butt or a butt. Maybe it wasn't his butt. We never really got for sure, but a close-up picture of his butt. And when I say a close-up picture, I mean a not the pants with a butt, a naked butt with a lot of emphasis on the actual hole there. So a nice close-up picture. Really classy. What's interesting about that moment is while Van Sciver and many of Van Sciver's supporters said this is disgusting, what are you kidding me? A lot of people who don't like Van Sciver are like, boys will be boys. How funny is this? You wouldn't get pictures of butt if you weren't such a jerk. And this is one of those things where it's like, the signs are all there that somebody might be a creep or might not have good judgment. If somebody does something to somebody you don't like that is offensive or violent or whatever it happens to be, rather than kind of cheering that on, rather than going, all right, well, normally I wouldn't approve of this, but since I don't like the person, it's generally you should condemn it. You should not like it. Standards have to go both ways. Fair is fair. And I mentioned this before. I mean, look, again, whether you like Van Sciver or do not like Van Sciver is kind of irrelevant. It's like, are you for or against people sending kind of nude photos of their butt to other people? I mean, most people are not. But it very much is in line with the go punch a Nazi crowd. And I'll explain why very briefly because it impacts so many of these stories. That's been a popular slogan, I punch Nazis. The problem is, beyond that being a slogan, kind of a stupid slogan, because again, most people do not go out and become tough guys and go punch people because they know they'd be wrecked or they'd go to jail or it's violence. Most people, it's like when you're driving a car and somebody cuts in front of you and you think, man, I wish I had a tank, I'd blow that car right out of the road right now because you're irritated at being cut off. 99.9% of the people, they get this flash of anger and then they go on about their lives. They, listen to the radio, they drink some of that sweet, sweet Patron. Patron, the drink that heals all wounds. Patron, do you have an annoying coworker? Patron. Anyway, they get past it and they move on with their life because to obsess over it would be crazy. With the Punch 'em Nazi crowd, it's like if you know that there's a Nazi there, an actual Nazi, you should not be going up there and trying to punch him. You should be, going to the police. If you got somebody there that's for genocide and actually is wanting to cause harm and violence on someone else, which is what a Nazi is by definition, go to the authorities. Good Lord, what are you doing? Like we still have war protocols that would they're war criminals. Go to the police. Or if you don't trust the police, call the FBI. Whatever you have to do. But the problem is when the definition of Nazi becomes guy who listens to Joe Rogan, that's too broad of a term. And so going and punching that person is anarchy and craziness, and you wouldn't do that. And that's why I'm anti-Nazi. But I'm also anti people just randomly going up and punching people as well. I don't think that's helpful. That's not being anti-fascist. That's being crazy. So why does all this have to do with the Rodriguez situation? It's like when the guy is making threats to another artist, when the guy is sending nude pictures of his butt, whether you like Frank Cho or Van Sciver becomes kind of irrelevant. You have to go, hey, this guy is not completely balanced. There's some problems here. Somebody needs to sit down with old Robbie Rodriguez and say, hey, cut it out. That you're this isn't good. But nobody has done that. So now the revelations have come forth, and this is kind of the sad wah-wah part of this whole story, is Robbie Rodriguez is now getting a number of people coming out and saying, hey, he creeps on women at shows. He's kind of vulgar. He comes up and he tries to pick up girls with really kind of tasteless pickup lines like, hey, let's go have a threesome, or, would you like to, touch my butt? I don't know what it is with the butt with him, but anyway, he's apparently a hound dog, maybe is the expression. Again, and whether or not you think this is a cancelable offense or not, is it again, boys will be boys? Is it pickup lines are okay? Or is it, hey, creeping on, female fans, young female fans at shows is not good behavior? Again, you make your own decision. I'm not going to tell you what to believe, but he is certainly going through the mill now. And a lot of people are like, man, I never saw this coming. It's like, but you didn't? But really you didn't? Because there's a very clear established track record, much more than with Latour and others. Like, in addition to just seeing him at shows, I mean, you just have to go through his Twitter feed, and it's like, this guy clearly tends to be a hothead, jump to violence, and also does gross things to people. And you guys maybe ignored that because he was doing that to people you also didn't like, but. Somebody who feels comfortable doing that to somebody you don't like is probably somebody who feels comfortable doing it to someone you do like at some point. So anyway, that's what's going on with him. So what's going on with Ed Piskor? Well, he is, he's been an interesting one because there's been some rumblings on him in the past. And I have this personal theory that may be completely, go nowhere. But some time ago, a year ago, the Richard Meyer guy from Diversity in Comics praised Ed Piskor's X-Men work, the Grand Design comic, said that he liked it and it was really good. I noticed that as soon as he did that Piskor started getting some people kind of looking at him sideways. And it was weird, and I, I don't know if there's a correlation there or not, but it did seem to be the case. So in the Kayfabe show that Piskor is on, he made some comments about... kind of the Run DNC and the fact that Run DMC, what am I saying? I'm talking too quickly. How he made him a racial caricature. And so, in a nice way, because we're mixing it up, this isn't about sexual impropriety. It's about, racial comments, things that sound a little dodgy, maybe. Again, you really have to squint. So you should listen to the interview yourself. He kind of talks about clout chasing and kind of some of the silliness of it. What seems like a fairly balanced view. Again, this is all your personal opinion. It's easy to go, hey, men should never hit on women in a convention and make them feel uncomfortable. That sounds good, but easier said than done, because it's very easy for something to slip into uncomfortable territory without really realizing where it all goes. It's easy to slide from one to the other, and it doesn't necessarily indicate a serial harasser. It indicates somebody who, is trying. There's a lot of factors there. Again, I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying you can't very quickly just go, hey, This guy asked if the other girl would like to have a drink with him. He's a jerk. You know, you need more context to really understand what's going on there. It has to be a fuller story. And to be fair, a lot of the critique that's come out around Ellis and Latour, it is showing that deeper context. It's more than just a, hey, let's have a drink. It's like, you know, there's just more to it. And it's hard to exactly put your finger on it. And again, it's your decision whether you think this is over the line, not over the line, etc. And it's going to be a personal choice. I'm just saying, you know, snap judgments are a bad idea, kind of period. So anyway, Ed Piskor makes some comments about that. Then he talks about some things that some people are construing as being racist. So he's got some people after him as well. So that's a fun one. You know, what can we say? So then we get to Scott Allie, Dark Horse, writer-editor, and he was fired, removed from his position, and Dark Horse made a formal announcement saying they will no longer be working with editor-writer Scott Allie. And this is what happened here? Well, here there's actually pretty tangible things, unlike the others where it's like, well, there's somebody flirting with someone else and maybe it went over the line and maybe it was, you know, maybe it was pressure, maybe it wasn't. There's a debate. This is Scott Allie. There's some pretty consistent and tangible accusations that he sexually assaulted someone at a comic convention and then continued to harass. And there's a large number of people who have consistent stories that go beyond just, hey, you're pretty, and into kind of, you know, really affirm sexual misconduct. And what's curious about all this is in 2015, unlike a lot of these others, Scott Allie admits it. He says that he did do this, and that he was kind of kept on by kind of a couple big names. Mike Mignola in particular was fond of the guy, kind of stayed loyal to him even through that. But now Mignola is saying he's done and he's not working with him anymore. This is, if you've been in comics for a while, this is one of those. This case in particular is why I do the videos talking about how the publishers need to step up and actually take more responsibility here. Because unlike, again, a lot of the others where there's a blurred line, in Scott's case, there's some very clear things that had gone wrong with, some allegedly, but again, when the guy admits that he did these things, it kind of takes it away from allegedly into more firm territory that really goes to assault. Not just verbal assault, but physical assault. And so but I think the question mark is, this happened in 1999, i.e. 21 years ago. And then there was some admission in 2015, i.e. 5 years ago. And so, but despite all that, he was promoted in 2005 and 2012. He's editor-in-chief in 2012. And you have to kind of scratch your head and say, all right, really? There's a lot of good editors out there. There's a lot of people that could have had that job. Why did we promote this guy when there was, clear, substantiated problems? That's where I always flip to. It's nice and all that we're doing little pledges to say we're going to be better people, but if the publisher are promoting, continuing to hire and keep these people on, providing no guidance, no training, no HR, and again, this is not like, oh, it's a little independent contractor out there. This is a guy they promoted to editor-in-chief of their company. That one is like, I mean, it's hard to look at this and go, hey, boys will be boys, or, we as men, we need to do better. It's like at this point, you start to say, all right, publishers, why are you letting this go on? Why are you why are you promoting the guy when there's clear problems? And again, this isn't like he would go to conventions and he would buy some people drinks and sometimes make advances on people, and he was sloppy and we didn't really want those advances and it was creepy. It wasn't like that. It was like, hey, he assaulted somebody, and then over the course of the next 10 years, there's emails and eyewitness accounts and first-person things to say that he was creepy, would reference the assault. I mean, just like, what? That's where things really go sideways, and why I definitely look skeptically at a lot of these industry statements about how we're going to be better as a company, and we need to police ourselves, and we need to stand together and have unity against. I mean, could you have done this 15 years ago? Like, I made a post that got a lot of attention around complaining that people getting mad at the Man Show in 2000 or 2020 are crazy, because that show's like 18 years ago this show was on. And a lot of people are pushing back going, you expect people to know what happened 18 years ago? That's ridiculous. Yeah, that's forever ago. I mean, to live with this problem for 21 years, I don't know. I'm just saying. But that's old Scott's case. Okay, which leads nicely into our final one, Charles Brownstein. Who's this guy? What does he matter? Well, he was the executive director of the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund, and you cannot make this up, that the guy who's the executive director of the Legal Defense Fund, a position he held, like Scott, for 18 years, is finally been asked to step aside. He was basically told to resign. He has resigned. He did so not because it was the right thing to do, not because there were issues, but because a number of prominent comic creators, in particular James Tynion, Al Ewing, and others, said, you know what, we're sick of this. We're not going to work with this guy anymore. And we're not going to support anything to do here as long as he's the executive director. So what did he do? And surely it was something in the last few months, right? No. In 2005, it's another sexual assault where basically at the Ohio Comic Con, seeing any trends here, by the way, with Comic Cons, he assaulted Taki Soma, and this one was reported to police. It was ultimately, there's conflicting evidence and everything else, but Brownstein, you might say, okay, well, maybe it was a he said, she said situation, except Brownstein admits to it and says that the incident was stupid, drunken prank, that was, just he's ashamed and everything else. But despite being ashamed, he went ahead and, took this position as the head of the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund for 18 years because, it's a shameful event, but, I'm not going to step down from being the person in charge of the Legal Defense Fund, despite the fact that, I sexually assaulted somebody. And it's like, once again, so he's basically the legal defense said, hey, we're starting to get some attention here. This is a guy who was leading the charge against book banning and, protecting other creators. It's just like, what the hell? So you have to look at this and just go, why is it in this industry that we have these people who do, sexual assault, not just flirting, and we have them in high levels of position of management? Meanwhile, the comic industry is obsessed with saying that some people on Twitter are being toxic fans. How in the world do you have somebody who is the editor-in-chief at Dark Horse, the head of the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund, somebody that people rally around when he sends naked pictures of his butt? Ed Piskor, I don't get this one. I think I don't see the problems with his comments. He's kind of, this is my personal opinion. Again, everybody can have their own. I think that's ridiculous what's going on to him. But in these other cases, it's like there's clear problems. The comic industry had no problem with it in 2005, 2010, 2015, 2018. They had lots of problems with people posting mean tweets about milkshakes. And granted, that milkshake stuff was, there was trolling and there was some mean slander and saying that, female workers at a company are hired just for sex and everything else. Not cool. It's not great. These aren't good comments. But when you have somebody inside your own house who is not only being accused, but admits to sexual assault, and you put that person in charge of the Legal Defense Fund, you have to start saying, what? This industry is broken and needs some repair. That repair is not going to come from a Twitter pledge. It's not going to come from a renewed desire to attack the baddie fans. It's got to come from some real examination of itself from within at the publisher and the company level of why these people keep getting not just hired, but high-level management positions while simultaneously decrying other people for the exact same or far less behavior. I think that's the crazy part. So anyway, that's the news for today, all in one. Get it all out of the way. There's some questions to be asked here, so let me know your comments below. What do you think of all this? There's a pattern here, right? Not crazy. You just got to kind of ask yourself, why? Right? I don't know. Like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, Facebook, at Comic Perch. Let's make this industry better. Seriously. I don't think it's that hard. Step one, people who commit sexual assault don't get management positions. I'm right. I think. I have to think so. Thanks for listening.